Hi, today I want to talk about how you can apply some of the principles of a permaculture food forest to a garden bed in your yard. Now, a permaculture food forest, the goal there is to have a self-sustaining, very low maintenance food system. And this is typically accomplished by planting perennial vegetables, fruit trees, vines that produce fruit bushes, nut trees, etc. And the goal is to create a system much like a forest that pretty much takes care of itself. There's very little intervention needed. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish here in this particular garden bed in my yard. And specifically how I do that is, like in a food forest, I plant some perennials. And those perennials come back year after year. Some of them, because this is my winter garden bed where I provide protection in the winter, some of them are growing all year around and producing food for me. Another thing that I do is I use open pollinated heirloom seeds. My favorite source for those seeds is Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Their website is rareseeds.com, and the advantage in using open pollinated seeds is that you can let the plant go to seed, drop their seeds, or save the seeds if you wish. And when those seeds germinate and produce plants, they are going to be the same plant you had to begin with. And that's not necessarily going to be the case if you're using hybrid seeds. Now, to address the issue of maintenance, like I said, a goal of a food forest is to have very low maintenance, and that's something I try to replicate here. Within a food forest, much like any forest, no one's going in and adding a lot of fertilizers and pesticides to keep the forest going. It's a self-sustaining system. And one of the things that keeps the soil going is just the organic matter in the system itself that falls to the ground, decomposes, feeds the soil, feeds the beneficial soil organisms. And I try to replicate that here. So with this Claytonia here, I'll let this all go to seed, drop the seed, and then all of the organic material that's in this bed stays in the bed. As the plants mature and die off, I let them decompose right here, and that provides a source of nutrition for the soil organisms and the soil. So the only real maintenance that I will do in this bed is that I will add some compost. In this case, I'll be adding vermicompost. But I'm only going to do that here in the spring. And the other thing that I will do is I'll keep the garden bed moist in case we have a dry spell, because I want to make sure the seeds germinate when the time is right. So again, very low maintenance, adding a little compost, keeping the bed watered. So let's take a look at some of the plants I have growing in the bed. Okay, what we have here is mach. This is clearly flowering and getting ready to go to seed. And this crop actually came up from last year's crop that went to seed and dropped. So I'll be letting that happen again. And again, the seeds for these came from rareseeds.com. And this is a crop that will grow all winter and go to seed in the spring and early summer. This is Claytonia, which is going to seed. Again, this is from rareseeds.com. I'll let it go to seed. All this organic material will stay right here in the bed, drop down. It'll feed all my worms and feed the soil. And very low maintenance, low effort, lots of food. This guy right here, I believe, is tatsoi. It doesn't look much like tatsoi anymore now that it's bolting. But again, same idea. Let it go to seed. All this organic material will stay in the bed. This is giant red mustard green. This is actually coming up this spring, but it will produce seeds this summer, and I will let them just fall right here, and everything will, and we'll have giant red mustards again in the fall. This right here is arugula, which is coming up this spring. Same thing. Everything stays in the bed. The seeds will stay in the bed, and lots of food. I won't be planting anything new. These are all volunteers that are part of my little food forest here. Here's a kale going to seed, and actually a little baby kale right next to it there, which is coming up. Here's some parsley, came up on its own. I will let that go to seed just like everything else, and we'll have a parsley crop here in the spring and also in the fall. Here's some radicchio that's been very picked over all winter. It'll be going to seed early summer, I think. This came again from last year's seeds that dropped. Didn't have to plant it. I planted it once a couple years ago. Just keeps coming back. Here's a Swiss chard plant that was here all winter. Not looking really great right now, but again, it's been here all winter, so it's been through a lot. And here's some spinach, open pollinated heirloom. And I will let it go to seed, just like everything else. Everything stays in the bed, except what we eat, of course. Okay, so those were some of the annuals I have growing. Let's look at some of the perennials. This right here, of course, is our old friend dandelion. It's been here all winter. We've been eating it all winter. And I have dandelion really throughout this bed. That's another one you have to be careful. You don't want to let it take over. So you have to do a little bit of maintenance there and make sure that not too many dandelions flower and go to seed. Here's another perennial in the bed. We have some garlic chives. Very low maintenance. I don't do anything. You can still see the garlic chives from last year. Probably still got some seeds in there. I just let that stay right here. Next to it is sage, and this is an area of the bed that's covered with a glass-covered cold frame in the winter. And the sage actually makes it all the way through the winter, so that's why it's so far along right now, even though it's only mid-May. Here's another perennial, Egyptian walking onions, and these will also take over your bed pretty quickly, so you'll want to pick some of these and not just eat their greens. This is one of my favorite perennials, red vein sorrel. It's very attractive. It produces food year-round. This is, again, is an area of the garden that's covered with a cold frame, so this grows all year round, and it comes back year after year. This here is salad burnet, another perennial, and it's going to seed at the moment. This also is very hardy in the winter, produces leaves all winter long. So again, this approach is going to yield a lot of food. Now keep in mind it's not going to work for everything. You wouldn't want to grow pumpkins in your backyard like this, for example. You wouldn't want hundreds of pumpkin seeds growing. That's something you want to carefully plan. Same with corn or tomatoes, things like that. You want to plan your space out. But some of the plants I've been mentioning here, they can grow in close quarters. They'll be perfectly happy that way. So that's the approach I'm taking in this bed. It's mostly greens. I have the walking onions, carrots, things like that aren't going to take up a whole lot of space. They aren't going to compete too much for space, and I can just let the garden pretty much take care of itself. So like a food forest, this bed is very low maintenance. It's self-sustaining to a great degree. In terms of the maintenance, I'll be adding some coffee grounds and some vermicompost. I'll keep it moist so the seeds can germinate, and that's really it. And then of course all the picking of the food, it takes some work. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you next time.